So with no further ado, we have the Power of Peace program, and we're going to introduce, I'm not going to say anything else, but welcome to Mr. Michael Arterberry.
My name is Michael Arterberry, and I'm the founder and creator of Power of Peace. Power of Peace is a program that allows young people to have a safe environment to talk about the issues in their lives and learn from them.
I need you to think of an adjective that describes your personality, and it has to be positive.
We do activities that are not intimidating and gives the young people a safe place to explore some of the things that may be going on in their lives, and also to build community with the other young people that are going through the program with them.
I have a peaceful demeanor. Inside, I'm not as peaceful as I look.
Oh, you're not?
No, I have my family to worry about, especially my mom. I'm her rock.
Yeah, that's okay though, because you're a good rock.
We like to work with 25 to 30 students at a time. I ask the principals for a cross-section of students that are representative of the student population. And over a course of a few weeks, we're able to work with a critical mass of students in each one of the buildings.
What's something positive you look for in people?
I want somebody who's unique, because if somebody's unique and they know that they're unique and they respect themselves, then they respect everybody else too.
Wow.
In the past year and a half, I've gotten to know Mike and his crew fairly well. A colleague of mine recommended the Power of Peace for our student body, and it was so moving that we actually had him come back again to do another 150 students this year, and it really strengthened the relationships, not just from student to student, but student to staff member.
I require a minimum of 2 teachers in each one of my workshops so that they get the opportunity to see their students from a different perspective. They get to see them outside of the classroom and see them in a more comfortable environment. We also want to have the culture created within the workshop to be continued in the building.
I have shown this program to many of my colleagues in the area, and usually the first question they ask is, what's the sustainability like? Does Mike come and go and you'll never see him again? That has not been the case. He has made some bonds with students that when he comes back every session, he still goes back, asks about certain students, and he actually was our commencement speaker at last year's graduation ceremony. So to me, that really sets him apart, that I feel like he's invested as much in this district as I am and as our staff is.
My favorite activity is called Who Am I? We give the young people 10 sheets of paper, and they have to write down 10 qualities that express who they are, and they have to get rid of the 10 slips of paper.
Crumble up the slip of paper. As you drop this piece of paper, honor this quality as it passes from your life.
Once they get rid of all 10 slips of paper, they then pick up the ones that they want back, and they keep the ones that they do not want on the floor. It gives the young person an opportunity to get a really close look at who they are, what they represent, and how they want to be represented once they leave the program.
Who is willing to share how it felt to go through this process?
It really helps me think, and it makes me feel like I'm getting to know my own self better.
As I was dropping people to the ground, I felt like I was becoming more like everybody else and losing myself.
Yeah, like a loss. I think that teenagers lose themselves in the process of trying to find themselves. What we want to do is we want to allow the young people to become the driver of their car rather than the passenger.
You never stop developing the person that you are, but you have to have what they call a core. Your core has to be your stability and your base. So some of those qualities that you drop and you feel like you're losing something is more than likely something that's attached to your core. And that's the person that you have to know. Your generation is setting you guys up to not feel. You have all these social medias where you speak to people from the other side of a screen. So it depersonalizes interactions as people. But don't buy into that. When you walked into this room, everybody was just a face. You go through this activity, and now each one of those faces become a person.
For me, in one sentence, what this program does is this enables our students to understand that they are more alike than they are different, and it allows our staff to see that as well. It's given them kind of a sense of place in the school, and it's given them some ownership of their education, and because of that, they're invested more, and because of that, they are staying in school and they are graduating.
Peace ambassadors. That's what I like to call the young people that go through Power of Peace. But beyond trying to make the person sitting next to you better, I want you to make you better. And see, once you get better, then everything else starts to kind of fall into place, because people feed off of energy. So you can give that same energy and give it off to others if you just learn how to take it, nurture it, and express it. The world that I create in the workshop is the world that I live in. And I explain to them that you are the catalyst of how it carries over. If you make it your duty and your mission to do it, you can do it.
More than our Belinda Middle School.
So I can be comfortable.
You know, being here, I feel like I'm at home. I graduated from the school in 1982. That's a long time ago. Don't try to count the years or how old I am. But I graduated from here in 1982. I remember sitting in those seats, just like you, for different programs. You know, I also remember, of course, walking across that stage when I graduated. But I'm happy to be here, to spend this time with you. But before I get into my program, I want to start with a story. And it's about a farmer and a donkey. All right? A farmer and a donkey. Yeah, that's my name. It's about a farm and a donkey. Now, this donkey was a special donkey. Can you turn on the mic? I'm sorry, I'm getting feedback. How? Yeah, that's better. It's about a farm and a donkey. And so this donkey's a special donkey because the donkey would go out to the fields and he would work the field. But when he finished working on the fields, the farmer would bring the donkey back home and allow the donkey to play with his kids. So when they would come back home with the donkey, they would allow the kids to wash him, you know, they would pet him. Sometimes if they were really good, the parents would allow them to ride him. So the donkey was really not only a working donkey, it was more like a pet. But one day, the donkey started wandering around the farm, and he fell into an empty water well. So he fell into the empty water well, hits the bottom, he's checking to make sure he's all right, and when he realized everything was good, he looked up and he saw that he couldn't get out. So he started making donkey noises. And then the farmer realized, of course, that he couldn't find his donkey, so the farmer's looking for him. He's making the donkey noises, and then they make the connection. Farmer looks down in the middle down at the bottom of the well. He sees the donkey. He wants to get him out. So he gets 6 of his friends. They come over to the well, and they start thinking about how they can get him out. And one of his friends suggested that they get some rope. So they all got some rope, and they start to lasso the donkey at the bottom of the well. They draw it down, they miss him. They throw it again, they miss him again. They throw it down, they get it around his neck, they don't want to pull on that because it'll choke him, so they release it. Then all of a sudden they threw it to his back legs. He stepped into it. They shimmied it up his body, and they started to pull. They start pulling the donkey, but donkey's moving. Pulling the donkey, donkey's moving. Then halfway up the well, they realized that the donkey was too heavy. So what they did is they lowered him back to the bottom of the well, and now the farmer has to make a grim decision. Now see, he can't feed the donkey food from his family at the bottom of the well. And he can't starve the donkey because I just told you that the donkey was like a pet. And then he had a hot-headed friend that was like, hey, just shoot him. He's like, nah, we can't do that. So one of his friends says, you know what? You have to fill the hole so your kids don't fall in it. So let's bury him with dirt. So they get a shovel and they start shoveling dirt into the well. And every time that dirt would hit the donkey would scream. And every time that donkey would scream, it would cause the farmer some distress. So you got dirt, scream, dirt, scream, dirt, scream, and then all of a sudden the scream stopped. And once the scream stopped, the farmer was sad, dropped a tear. They gave the donkey a moment of silence, but then they went back to shoveling the dirt. Shovel, shovel. And then the guy on the right side says, hey, I see his ear. Farmer's like, what? They start shoveling a lot faster. Next thing you know, you see half his body. They keep shoveling, and the next thing you know, that donkey that was in the bottom of the well walks out and he saves himself. So let me explain to you how he did it. Every time that dirt came across that wall, it would fall on his back, he would shake it off, and he would step on it. And he took every scoop of dirt that was meant to kill him to save his life. Now, if everyone in this room keeps it real, everybody in this room has dirt. So what I want to do today is I want to share a little bit of my own dirt. So I want to show you a picture of the house that I grew up in. This right here is the house that I grew up in, okay? I would like to tell you that I went back and took a picture of it once it was condemned, but if I tell you that, I would be lying. If you put plexiglass on the first top 3 windows, you keep the boards on the rest, it's exactly the same way it was when I lived in it. Now, I was born and raised in New Rochelle. That house is down by Al's Barbershop right off of North Avenue. Now, when I was a kindergartner, I had a choice of schools. But my father drove a bus for Ward School, and I didn't have a babysitter. So I got to go to Ward School rather than going to training. And I remember getting on my dad's bus as a kindergartner, you know what I'm saying? I'm getting on the bus, I'm all excited. I get on the bus and we're leaving my block, and all the houses on my street was similar to that. So, you know, I was embarrassed about it, but I wasn't embarrassed about it with people that lived around where I lived. But I knew I was going up to Ward. And I remember getting on my dad's bus and we're driving down Pinebrook Boulevard. And the houses on Pinebrook Boulevard don't look like the house that you have on the screen. And so as I get closer to my school, I'm getting nervous. Because I think when I walk into my kindergarten class that the kids are gonna know that I live in that house. So I get off the bus, I go into the class, and I realize they don't know that I live there, so we good. So I started playing with the kids, having a great time, loving my time at Ward School. But then all of a sudden, I had my first play date. Now, I don't know if y'all call them play dates, but that's what we call them back then. I went to somebody's house after school. And when I went over his house was beautiful. He had a basketball court in the front yard. His backyard was, you know, for me, living in that house, it looked like about 3 football fields long. And his basement was an arcade. So I'm at his house, I'm hanging out, I'm having a great time. And then all of a sudden, his mother comes out on the back deck and she says, Michael, we're gonna be taking you home in 15 minutes. So now all of a sudden, that kindergarten mind, I'm saying to myself, oh snap, they're gonna take me to this house. And I don't want them to see where I live because I know if he takes me to the house when I go to school the next day, he's gonna tell everybody where I live. So I get in the car and my little kindergarten mind starts to move. And I'm like, wow, what am I gonna do? So halfway home, I came up with a plan. On my street, there was a house with what they call, it was split level, so you could see half is glass, half is vinyl. That means from the outside, you couldn't see. So I said, you know what, I'll go to that house. So I make them pull to the fake house. I get out the car, I want to get out at the curb and just have them drop me off there, because I was afraid if I went up on the porch, and the people that own the house would have been like, hey, get off my porch. And then I'd be like, oh wow, I'm busted. So I stood on the curb, but the parents were respectable, so they didn't pull off until I was up on the porch. So I get up on the porch, I duck down, they pull off, you know what I'm saying? And I had mission accomplished. Now I would like to tell you that I only did that one time. But if I told you that, I would be lying to you. I did that for the next 6 years. For the next 6 years, every time that I went to somebody's house, I had them take me to the fake house. So what I want to ask you today, not to say or say that any of you live in the greenhouse, but how does your dirt make you feel? You know, as teenagers, you deal with what they call affirmation. Affirmation is how you feel about yourself. Being positive about yourself. You know, and it's a tricky thing because it's a battle that not only you young people deal with, but if the teachers be honest with themselves, they deal with it as well. And see, our brain is this machine that's complicated. And what happens is whatever you feed your brain, your body does. So if you're dealing with dirt and you're dealing with having these negative thoughts come to you, it starts to deal or come out in your behavior. You know, what's even crazy is the fact that you're dealing with the negative things coming to your head, but then you have people that don't help you out. You have your peers, your friends. Some of you, it may not even just be friends, it could be family. It could be a cousin. It could be an aunt or uncle. And in some serious cases, it could be a mother or a father. Now in my program, what we say is that if you allow the negative thoughts of your own mind and the negative thoughts of those that are saying things to you to control you, then you are the passenger of your car and not the driver of your car. So what I want to do is I want to give you an example by telling you a story, true story. When my daughter was 4 years old, she came down to the place where my man came and I watched my football games. And I watch my game, she comes downstairs, she gets on my lap, I give her a kiss. As she walks off with my wife, I say, good night, beautiful. She looks up at my wife, she does the happy dance, and she says, did you hear what he called me? He called me beautiful. But then I thought about something. See, I work with kids. So I said, what if I called her ugly? What if when she came down to say goodnight, I said, hey! Didn't I tell you about bringing her downstairs when I'm watching the game? I don't want to see her when I watch the game. When I'm watching the game, it's my time. It's my own independent time. You bring her downstairs when I say so. And then my interaction with her continues to be that way. 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old. How old are you, my man? 12. So let's fast forward to 12. And now she's sitting in a classroom with you at Alberta Middle School. She's been bombarded with all those words that I said to her in a negative way. Guess what? She's not too happy. She could be dealing with a little depression. She has low self-esteem. She doesn't make friends very well. But all of these things are happening because guess what? Who's driving her car?
I'm on my way, Daddy.
Her father's driving her car.
On your way?
And I'll drive her car when she's 13, when she's 14, when she's 15, when she's 16. And guess what? She can get married, have a husband, and I'm still driving her car. She can have a baby, husband and a child, and as her father, I can still be driving her car. And I will drive her car until she finally takes back her keys. And so I say this to you because what you need to do is to periodically evaluate where you are and say to yourself, who's driving my car? And if you realize that you are not the driver of your car, you need to take back your keys. Take back your keys and take control of your life. Because when you have your keys, then you drive to the destination that you want to go, not to the destination that people want to take you. The next thing I want to talk to you about is how do you want to be remembered? What is this, my 7th grade, right? Listen, it's not too young to start thinking about that. How do you want to be remembered? So check this out. People make jokes and say that I came out of my mother's stomach this big, but I didn't really. I was always just a big guy. But I had a choice. I could either be the bully, or I could be the one that protected those that got bullied. So I remember being in ward school, and I was in kindergarten, and if you messed with or bothered anybody, I made sure that I took care of it. I even remember I was so big, I was bigger than everybody else. I remember standing outside 2nd graders' classrooms, and I wait for them to come out if they bully one of my friends. Take care of some business, you know what I'm saying? But we won't talk about that because this is Power of Peace. But anyway, so I was the protector. I protected those that were being bullied. And I did the same thing when I got up here to Albert Leonard like you. I did the same thing when I got to the high school, but you know, when you got to the higher grades, I didn't have to fight as much. I learned to use my words and talk to them. But then I want to fast forward it to you to my 25th high school year reunion. That's a long way for you, but 25 years removed from school, I'm going and I'm going to see all my old friends. And I walk into the place where we're having it, and my class president comes and pulls me to the side. And she says, you know what? I just want you to know that there's people here tonight who called me and emailed me, and they're only here because you said you were coming. And when they told me that, it made me feel, I can't even explain it. I couldn't wait to get home to tell my wife. But then if I ask myself the question, how do I want to be remembered? You better believe that that's the way I want to be remembered. As you saw on the screen, I work with kids. And when I finish my program, one of the greatest compliments that I can ever get is when a young person pulls me to the side and he says to me, if I had a father, I would want him to be just like you. So again, when I ask myself the question, how do I want to be remembered? Those are both two ways that will be perfect. Now when you look at life, I want you to think about regret. And I want you to make sure as you go through life that you don't have many regrets. So I want to share a story with you. I like to tell stories, but anyway. It's about a young man, his name is Lenny Cook. Do I have any Cleveland Cavaliers fans? Let me see, Cavs. All right. LeBron fans, you know, you don't have to be a Cavs but a LeBron fan. How about Carmelo Anthony? Yeah, a little bit more. All right, so listen up. Lenny Cook came up at the same time as LeBron and Carmelo Anthony. And I saw this on a documentary on HBO. So imagine, it's a Saturday and I'm watching this documentary and I'm watching this kid school LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony. School. And they start watching him when he's about in the 6th grade. They watch him to the 7th grade. He gets so good that a woman from New Jersey pulls him out of Brooklyn, puts him in a mansion with her in New Jersey, let him bring 3 of his friends, and he got to go to school, to a prep school. When he went to his AAU tournament, she would fly him on a private jet. So Lenny Cook was living good, and he was playing ball, and his life was set out for him. And then all of a sudden, Lenny Cook becomes a senior in high school. And back then, during Lenny Cook's time, you could actually go right to the pros from high school. So an agent walks up or finds him and says, listen, sign this contract with me for $250,000 and I will become your representation. Lenny Cook takes the $250,000, he signs the contract, and he opens himself up for the draft. So now all of a sudden, draft comes, the cameras are in the restaurant, Lenny Cook shows up, you know how he does. He's got the jewelry on, you know what I'm saying? His buddies that lived with him in the house in New Jersey, they have jewelry too. He pulls up in a truck with the beautiful rims. So he probably spent all of the $250,000 already. And he sits down in the restaurant and the draft comes on for professional. And guess what? Lenny Cook did not get drafted. And so now he's already signed the contract. And once you sign a contract, he can now not go to college. So what does he do? Lenny Cook goes off to Europe. He plays in the European Basketball League. But the NBA was his dream, so the fact that he didn't really achieve his dream never let him be settled. So all of a sudden what happened is the documentary shuts off. And when the documentary comes back on, they're like in the backwoods of North Carolina. I'm like, wait, is this the wrong movie? And I see a guy with a baseball hat on and this big pot belly. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, whoa, wait a second. That's Lenny Cook. And it sure was. They went back and they found him after he came back from Europe. And this man went from being, like I said, just as good, if not better, than LeBron and Carmelo Anthony, to being a bum. During the documentary, they took him down to Madison Square Garden one night when Carmelo was playing. And he's down on the court, and he's like, listen, he's standing side by side with a guy at one time, Carmelo was looking up to him. And as the documentary goes on, and it finishes, and this part made me cry, is that they did a split screen. One side was Lenny Cook, the bum. The other side was Lenny Cook when he was a youngster, and he was giving advice to the Lenny Cook that was a young boy. And he told him all of the things that he wished that he had done to make his life a little bit more positive. So I say that to you because what I want you to understand is as you start to make decisions, even though you may be in the 7th grade, you have to start making decisions that will be in the benefit or will put you in a position that when you look back on it, you won't regret it. So now I want to share something with you. I showed you my old house. I'm going to share where I live at now. This right here is the house that I live at now. Now wait a second, listen up. You saw where I grew up. You saw where I grew up. You know what I'm saying? Now it may not be much to many people in there. You may live in something a lot nicer. But that right there is my castle. That is my castle. Sometimes it's still not even real to me where I can pull up to my driveway and I have to stop at the bottom and look at it and be fearful that it may disappear because I don't realize the fact that it is mine. Now see, I have 2 kids. One's 10 and one's 14. And what I promised myself is that when I became old enough, I wouldn't have them live the life that I lived. Matter of fact, I forgot a few details. So let me take you back. Remember that greenhouse? In that greenhouse, I had what they call a slumlord. Slumlord is a guy you pay the rent to, but he doesn't fix anything. So in the wintertime, we didn't have no heat. So what my mom used to do is my mom used to take these old turkey basin pans and she would put water in them. And she would boil the water. And as she boiled the water would create vapors. And those vapors would create heat. And if the vapors weren't enough, then my mom would put on the stove. And she would crack the stove so that the heat from the stove would come out into the room. And so in the wintertime, that's how my mom used to warm up my apartment. Now when it was time to go to bed, you can't boil water and run the stove. So my mother would shut it off, and I had to go to my room and just dig. Now if you don't have heat, you don't have hot water. I was blessed with 2 bathrooms, a duplex, but neither one of the bathrooms had showers. They only had bathtubs. So if you don't have hot water, how do you take a bath? My mother taught me very young, as a kindergartner. I would fill that tub up with cold water, then I would go back to that stove, and I would boil that water, and I would take the boiling water to the cold water, pour it into the tub, and I would mix it like soup, and when the temperature got right, I would get in and take a bath. When I got to school, sometimes I wasn't the happiest, but you know what? I don't think you would be too happy if that's what you did every morning when you got ready to go for school. Last but not least, my family didn't have much money. My family didn't have much money. My mother was a loving woman, but she was a housekeeper, and that's what she did for a living. Matter of fact, what saved me, because I went to ward school, is the fact that the woman that she worked for had a kid my age. And so she was a shopaholic. So every time she would go buy clothes for her son, she would buy me an outfit. So when I got off the bus to go to ward school, I looked like the kids from ward school. I didn't look like some of the kids that lived on my street. So when I say to you, I promise myself that my kids wouldn't live the lifestyle that I lived, that's it. My kids don't have to worry about the things that I worried about growing up. But I want to show you the split picture, one more picture. Take a look. You see them side by side. And what I want you to understand is this. Don't ever allow anyone to stop you from dreaming. When I got on that bus, and I was coming up Pinebrook Boulevard in the kindergarten, when I could barely see over those seats, I was looking at the houses that looked like the house that I lived in now. And what it did is it planted a seed in my mind. And once it planted that seed in my mind, I made it my objective to make sure that when I got old enough, that I was going to have it. So I want you all to think about that. Maybe it's not about what house you want to live in, but it could just be any dream that you have. Now, me coming to talk to you today is connected to the fact that you saw my program that was up on the video. What we're going to do is we're going to do some work with some of the students here at our local middle school. And what my program is about is bringing young people into a room and giving them the opportunity to be empathetic, giving them the opportunity to build relationships, and giving them the opportunity to create a culture of peace. Because I'll tell you this, if you allow me to keep it real. Everybody brags on the diversity of your show. Oh, they brag on it. Oh man, we have such a diverse school. The schools are so diverse, but let's keep it real. We may have diverse schools, but do we all talk to each other? And so what I try to do through my program is to put young people in a room that don't normally talk to each other, and we start to break down those barriers that keep us separated. And so I'm going to be coming back to your school to be able to do that, but I just wanted to meet you. I wanted to plant some seeds and some things and some concepts that we use, and hopefully motivate you to strive and to push to be the best person that you can be. So I thank you for giving me this time with you this morning. At this time, what we're going to do is we're going to open it up to some questions. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand, and we'll bring the mic to you and you can ask. Sorry, got this one.
Okay, let's see who has some questions here. Good, solid questions. We only have a couple minutes. Mr. Dodd, my man.
How long have you been doing this program? Turn it off.
Sorry. I developed the program in 2008, all right? And it's not something that I went to college to learn. The program that I created is something that I created on my own.
It was on the whole time. Good morning. How did when you told the story about when your friends' parents dropped you off at the corner, how did you get home?
No, they took me to a house, but it wasn't my real house.
Oh, but like, how did you get home? Like, did you?
Oh, it was only right down the street.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't have them drop me off where I couldn't get home. No.
Good morning.
Man, I can't hear you.
Oh, did they ever catch you?
Did they? What? Did I fake the house? Oh, you one of those guys. You want to know that? No, nobody caught me.
No, like the people that lived there. Like, did they
No, they never caught me. They never caught me. I got lucky.
Would you ever tell your parents now?
What's that?
Would you ever tell your parents like now? Like, what would they say?
I don't.
If they knew that you faked which house, what would your parents say?
You know, my mother would not be insulted. The craziest thing though is my wife wrote a story about my life. You can buy it. It's on Amazon. It's called God Was Holding My Hand. But in the book, I had a picture of the greenhouse. So all my friends, when the book was released, were calling me up like, "Hey, you don't live there." And I was like, yes, I do. So, you know, until just recently, a lot of people never knew that I didn't live in that house.
Good morning. I was just wondering, what inspired you to be doing all of this? Like, what drove you to be the person that you are today, and not be the person that everybody else was, being a bully and whatever? What drove you to do what you're doing today?
Okay, all right. Nice question.
Good question. I'm into that
What? Listen up. You asked a good question, now you gotta listen.
one. Peter?
What drove me is the fact that I'm a firm believer that you can live in an environment, but you don't have to become that environment. And so what I did is I watched a lot of the people around me get into trouble, but I chose not to go down that path. Second to that is the fact that I had a lot of dysfunction or some dysfunction in my home, and I didn't want to bring my kids up in the same environment that I had to grow up in.
So remember when you said that you were watching football in your basement, right? So did you ever play like football as a sport? Yes.
All right, wow.
Just listen.
He gives me the opportunity to brag. I like that. Actually, I lettered, and letter means play. I played from Alba Leonard right up until I graduated high school. Basketball, baseball, and football. Football was my favorite, and if you allow me to brag a little bit more, I wasn't too bad on the football field. All right.
Okay, my question is, because we're running out of time, at Albert Leonard Middle School, we dedicate a lot of time trying to talk about all those kids in the middle. We know 10% of kids, statistically, bully, 10% are victims. Then we have 80% in the middle. And a lot of times I deal with kids that I know want to do the right thing, but they're afraid that by speaking up for what's right, they'll then in turn become a target, or they think that old, oh, don't be a snitch, don't be a snitch. How could you speak to those kids in the middle and get them to stand up for what's right, and almost like the wheels of karma, if you will? Curious.
All right, listen, if you are a bystander, all right, if you are a bystander, you are just as guilty as the person that's doing the bullying.
Guys, stays correct.
And I say that because what I want you to understand is that the bully thrives on the fact that nobody will tell. So what they do is, when you don't tell and they bully you, or you allow it to happen, they turn up the heat. They make it worse. And you would think they would stop once the heat got hot enough, but they will turn up the heat until you eventually get the courage to say something. So for you to want it to stop, you have to be able to get that courage and to step forward and actually bring somebody into that circle.
Stand up, go.
What do you do for a living?
Oh, my man, did you just walk in?
Do you do anything else but the program?
Well, okay, so I do my program, and I also go around and I speak to different schools, yes.
Oh, did you win all your fights?
Listen, come on, man. If I didn't, you think I would tell you?
I gotta relax. Okay. You like it? Okay.
Did you also feel depressed like your sister when you said the things to her while the football games were playing and your man came?
I kind of heard the story. It was my daughter. Well, you know what? That's a good question. You know, hurt people hurt others. So when he asked that I feel depressed, I think, and that was hypothetically, my man. Please don't think that I really said that to my daughter. All right.
Let him answer. Okay?
Right. So what I'm saying is, hurt people like to hurt others. So there's people, or I'm being honest, parents that may not be nice to their children, but they're not nice because of the fact that they come from a place of pain.
When you were younger and you said you were like, you didn't want people to know that you lived in your old house, like, did you like feel that they would think less of you?
Not that they would think less, but come on, let's be honest. They would have made fun of me. And sometimes they make fun of you in your face, you know, or they make fun of you behind your back. Now I know as an adult that if they were my real friends, it doesn't matter where I live.
Good morning. So, did you ever take your kids back to where you used to live?
You know, unfortunately, it's renovated now, so it looks really nice. So if I took them back, they'd call me a liar. So I shared the picture with them, and the scary thing is when they look at it, they can't believe it. And there's times where I have to go get that picture, like around Christmas, birthdays, you know what I'm saying? Just to remind them of all the things that they have, they need to appreciate a little bit more.
Were you ever like depressed in a certain part of your life?
You know, a good question. What allowed me not to be depressed so much in that house was sports. So what I did is I would take all the frustrations that I had in that house and I would take it out on the field or a bat or a basketball.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now you've been introduced to Mr. Arterberry and the power of peace. And if I may, excuse me, this is all for none. Meaning this is all for nothing. If we walk out of here, excuse me, you're facing me and you're listening. I'm not lowering my expectations of you. Don't lower your expectations of yourself. That being said, when we go to the cafeteria, when we're walking in the hallways, when we're on the bus this afternoon. Today, even more so, out of respect for Mr. Arterberry coming back to Albert Leonard representing the class of 1982, out of respect for the Youth Voices program, out of respect for yourself and each other, make sure that you act kind to people, good to people, and treat people how you want to be treated. I want to see everyone participating in Spirit Week. I am going to dismiss you in sections, so no talking. A round of applause for Mr. Arterberry. Thank you, AV. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, technology. This side first. Only. Everyone else stay seated.